Hello and welcome to this session of Entrepreneurship Essentials. Today we are continuing our previous session discussion on business model generation. Our discussion today will cover topics like what are the parameters for determining competitive advantage of a business model. Then in between we will be talking about Porter's 5 forces analysis. We have almost like a template. It's kind of a process that has been propounded by Saraswat called effectuation. We will be talking about that. We will start with market structure, because many a times we will be talking about market structure during the discussion. So, let us have a clear understanding on what market structure means. Market structure actually provides a holistic view about the competitive landscape of the industry, including its different players in the market and their market share and how much is their competitive advantage, etc., and what is it gives a kind of a sense of the attractiveness for a new business to start in the same market, same industry. So, it includes something like present market growth for any business. In a new business, the present market growth is a very important metric to understand. If the market is not growing well, and if the market is not likely to grow well in the future, then it is not an attractive business proposition. So, with this two metric itself, one can decide that this is not a good business model. One is the growth at present should be quite okay, and growth moving forward should be okay. Total market size should be good, otherwise after certain growth and market may get saturated and there may not be any possibility of further growth. So, business is not attractive in that kind of a market. And then if any company has a leading market share, that company is likely to wield a lot of power on the price and on other players, like they can dominate the marketplace. So, parameters like this all include all together is known as market structure. Then in economics there is a definition for market, types of market like monopolistic market, oligopolistic, then perfect competition. So, these are the types of market which are very important to understand before entering into particular marketplace as to what kind of market that is. If the market is monopolistic and if you have the kind of force to enter into that market, that would be a wonderful proposition. Monopolistic market is kind of, you do not have to bother much about the product, because whatever you produce, customers are likely to buy. So, entry barriers are high because it is monopolistic. So, there will automatically, because the entry barrier is high, that is why there are new entrants are not entering inside, they are not allowed to enter, and there is huge pricing power. We will be talking about pricing power moving forward. Oligopolistic is limited number of seller particularly and large number of buyers. So, because there are limited number of sellers, they collude with themselves and they kind of operate almost like a monopolist, but then they do not actually, they are not actually in a monopolistic market. So, whenever they intend to increase the price, they will be consulting among all the players and then they decide. So, between the oligopolists, they have product differentiation. So, they do not sell the same kind of product. So, every company has some kind of a different flavor of the product, some kind of niche, but normally pricing power is quite high because they collude among themselves. Perfect competition is there are many sellers, many buyers, and products are all homogeneous. So, entry barrier is almost non-existent. There is almost no pricing power. If anybody increases the price, he will be out of market, something like that. So, monopolistic will be something like a very life-saving drugs, or say anything that that comes with maybe technology, that somebody has the technology and other people do not have it. So, any product that you can identify where it is driven by technology. So, they the seller, maybe one single seller, they definitely are controlling. So, they are monopolistic. Oligopolistic may be something like say steel manufacturer, cement manufacturer. There are limited number of players, and then many a times they collude themselves and then command the price. Perfect competition, majority of the products are in perfect competition. You take any daily use products, they are kind of many sellers, and products are homogeneous. Now, whenever we talk of new business model and we talk of competitive advantage, if the business model comes with unique competitive advantage, we say that this business model is good or can be adopted, and then someone can start a business. But then what are the characteristic features of this business so as to make it attractive for entrepreneur? There is no actually one size fits all kind of a formula, but then there are features which definitely gives competitive advantage. So, let us see some of them. These are a subset of all the features. One is attractive market structure, meaning that, as I said, market structure. Firstly, the growth of the market should be good at present. Even if it is not good at present, moving forward the future growth must be good. Unless the market is growing well in the future, it's going to be a kind of a trying time for new entrant into this market. So, definitely the market growth should be good. Market size also should be good. If the market is growing and becoming saturated, then existing players themselves will try to capture more and more market, and new entrant may not be able to penetrate much. So, even if the market grows, a new entrant may not grow much. So, that is not a market to enter into. Entry barrier can be from both sides. Like suppose you are inside a market, so you think of creating barrier for others against others to enter into the same market, so that there is the competition does not increase. At the same time, you may be outsider and you are trying to enter into the market. So, if there are barriers, you have to kind of alleviate or get rid of the barriers to enter inside. So, barrier can be from both sides, but barriers are mostly maybe technology barriers, maybe someone may have a wonderful brand and majority of the customers are loyal to the brand. So, it will be difficult to snatch customer from existing players. There are many other points. I have a slide on that, so we will discuss more on that. Scalability is the mantra for new age businesses, because we will talk about network business based on network model. So, where scalability is everything, particularly internet based or social app based businesses are all dependent on registered number of users. The more the number of users, the better is the business. Initially customer acquisition is very costly. So, you spend a lot of money to acquire customer, you have to be very fast to acquire, and then once you have a huge customer base, then you can gradually enter into profit. Otherwise, at the beginning it would be very difficult. It means you have to keep on spending money to really scale this up. If the business does not scale, it's almost like failure of the business. Pricing power. So, some companies have, like the dominant player in the marketplace, say for example Tata Steel, they have dominant market share. So, if they and their brand also is quite well regarded, respected. So, if Tata Steel increases the price, perhaps customers will not go away from Tata Steel, rather they will think that we must buy this, they will attach more quality into that. Whereas, if some lesser known company increases the price, people will not touch that product. repeatability. So, repeatability is a customer, once you acquire a customer, you spend a lot of money. Now, you actually look at the lifetime value of the customer. So, the customer must come repeatedly again and again, only then you have a business, you have a business proposition. Otherwise, you end up spending a lot of money to acquire customer and then nothing happens. Compelling nature, your product or service should be compelling nature to the customer. Customer should feel that I cannot live without it, something like that is a compelling nature of your product to the mind of the customer. Growth potential, then technological edge, ownership of IP, so that gives you monopoly. Easy product extension, meaning that you create some kind of a brand, so you become familiar to the customer, and then customers know that your product is good. Then you launch another product and under the same brand with a different name or same name, a little bit of a change, and then you don't have to spend so much money. That is what is product extension. You have one product as a flagship, then other products actually follow. Logistic advantage, that is distribution, and maybe one side is the distribution, the other side is the raw material nearness. If the raw material source is close, then you don't have to spend a lot of money for transportation. Say you are thinking of a steel plant, if you are not close to the iron ore mines or coal mines, or say coking coal manufacturing unit, then logistic is going to be a huge problem. Means transportation cost is going to be defining on your pricing or costing, and then that defines your success. So, our first term in the list of parameters is market structure. So, your market structure, for your market structure to be attractive, there are these points: market size and present growth, future growth, growth potential. Then the market size should be sufficient to accommodate a new entrant. Market demand and supply, and there should be gap between demand and supply. So, profitability also is very important. Now, entry barrier, as I said, depends on many factors. I have listed some, but then it is not exhaustive. There might be many more through which companies create some kind of relationship with the customer, or they create some kind of core competency. We will define core competency later, otherwise it is going to take a lot of time. So, they create some kind of competencies that is very difficult to emulate or copy by competitors. Some kind of competencies like say in operation management, in production, in financial management, or holistically in all the management, they have some kind of competencies that is difficult to copy by others, which is not even visible. So, obviously, it cannot be copied. So, through whatever process they create, gradually they create these competencies, and then other people without these competencies will not be competitive. Means either their quality will not be good, or their cost of production will be high, or their whatever way we look at it, they are not going to be able to compete. So, there are many more points actually on entry barrier. So, once you create an entry barrier around your company, it is like a moat. Moat means people cannot cross and come to you, something like that. It is almost like a canal around your house, your maybe castle or something. So, there may be crocodile in that. Earlier days people used to do that, and in the night there will be no road will be closed. So, people will not be able to enter into that, which is a moat. So, you create a moat around your business. So, other new entrants will not be able to enter into your business, and you will have almost like a monopoly, and you sustain your business for a long time. So, you have to really try to create entry barrier. Alternately, you have to explore or assess new business model, and then try to understand whether you can create kind of entry barrier for others. Once you are in the marketplace, how you are going to create value that will work as if it is an entry barrier for other companies. So, they will not be able to enter inside, and you have a monopolistic business. Monopoly gives healthy profit. Scalability. So, scalability is very important. You develop prototype, have a pain point, develop prototype, get it validated by customer, then you have to scale. And unless you are capable of scaling, your cost will be so high that profit will be very difficult to achieve. So, the more you scale, the quickly you scale, the better it is, but then it should be controllable scale up. Like say Flipkart, Amazon, Practo, these are all internet based companies, and they are still trying to scale up. So, they have reach out, they kind of diversify into many other areas, and then they just scale in that manner. So, we did not discuss about this network based company. I do not know if I missed something. No. So, I was talking about network based companies like Flipkart, like Amazon, like Practo. They are dependent on registered users. So, unless they grow into millions of registered users, they will not be able to recover the initial cost of acquisition of customers. So, that is very important. Pricing power, capacity to increase price without affecting level of customers demand, meaning that Tata still increases the price, but their demand is not reduced. So, they are well off. The car companies perhaps is a good example of oligopolist, because there are fewer number of car companies, and they can also, they normally there is a news that Tatas and other companies together are going to increase the price. So, they always go together, otherwise one company increases the price, loses the market. So, pricing power actually is a normally is available for companies who has a unique product and there is no competitor, something like that, like life saving drug. I have a wonderful example here. So, let us move forward with the example. So, whenever input cost goes up, then you can pass it over to the customer without really bothering that customer is going to go away if I increase the price. That is what is pricing power. So, like say interest rate goes up. So, you increase the price accordingly. So, customers are not going to go to your competitors. That is what is pricing power. But if they go, then you do not have the pricing power. This is an example. It is a wonderful example actually, but then it is a kind of a nasty example. There is a company and they used to manufacture a product called Daraprim, and that is a drug for treatment of AIDS. And then the company is a new company, is a startup company. They were selling each dose at $13.5. So, people are happy, there is a treatment and there was no other drug available. Then suddenly one guy, he suddenly realized that this is a monopolistic business and they are selling for $13.5 a dose. So, I can take over the company and increase the price, make super profit. So, he took over this company, and next day he increased the price to $750. And because this is the only drug available at that point of time, people had no alternative but to buy this drug at $750 a piece. So, that is the power of pricing, but then one should be very careful about phenomenally increase in the price, because that may kind of attract more people to enter into the domain, even though the technology is not available, but then any technology that has been developed by anybody can be developed by the other people. So, if the attraction is so high, even though market size may be small, but then the price differentiation is so high, then other competitors will enter within no time. Look at this slide, next slide. In that this happened in 2015, and in 2016 another company came up with a drug which is a copycat of the same drug, and that is to be sold at $1, not even $13.5. So, with this kind of super increase in price, you may actually lose the market altogether. Means now you cannot even charge $13.5. In India, the drug is now available for 4 cents, that means $0.04 a piece. So, if you have a monopolistic business model, then do not try to extract all the golden eggs in one day. You try to increase the price in a very calibrated manner, understanding the mood of the customer, their affordability, etc., etc. Repeatability I just mentioned. What is repeatability? Customer, your business model should be such that customer will come repeatedly throughout their life, so that the lifetime value is good. So, you have to think whether this business model gives these features or not. If it is one time, something like a one time, like IIT Kharagpur has come up with a contraceptive. If you take one injection and for 12 years you are sterile. So, no company actually was willing to take this technology because there is no repeatability of the customer. That is very important. Even though it is a wonderful drug, from customers point of view it is wonderful, but then from business point of view, because this is not this repeatability issue is not there. So, entrepreneurs are not interested. Easy product extension, I explained that you build a brand around the product. So, around the brand now you keep on launching new products. So, your initial cost will be low. So, you can keep on moving forward. Logistic advantage is kind of commonsensical. So, its closeness to the market, closeness to inputs, then availability of knowledge worker, cheap labor, etc., etc. Like software companies, they start in Bangalore because more people are interested to go to Bangalore and settle, etc. Now, we move to the another model, altogether a different thing, but then if you are thinking of a business model, then you think of its competitive landscape, how you stand vis-a-vis your competitors. So, you have to think so many things, like as I said throughout these slides, there were many points which I discussed, but then again there is a template like business model canvas. Here we have a template for competitive landscape, which is called Porter's 5 forces. Porter's 5 forces are like the central thing is the competitive rivalry, that is your business around the competitors. What is the marketplace? This actually is the market structure, whole market structure, meaning who are the competitors, what are their market share, how the market is growing. Growing is not in particularly here, but it is all about competitors. So, if there are tremendous competitive rivalry, it is not wise to enter there, because existing businessmen are already fighting for survival. If the rivalry is not very aggressive, then that means low, then the market is attractive. That means there is a space for another player to enter inside. We start from the top. So, competition from new entrant, like you become a new entrant, and if you realize that any new entrant can enter, meaning there is no entry barrier for new entrant, then your advantage will kind of evaporate within no time. So, you have to be careful what is the entry barrier. Suppose you are smart and you have a kind of a proposition, maybe technology, maybe whatever. So, how long you are going to sustain? So, that is number one. Then bargaining power of customer. Say if you are going to sell, and then if the customers have many choices, so they may not come to you unless you have a superior value proposition. So, you have to understand how many players are there. You are coming with a maybe some differentiation, then how superior is this differentiation, whether customers have choices, or there is alternative products or things like that. Particularly market structure, price sensitivity, meaning that suppose you have to increase the price at some point of time. You increase the price by maybe 1%, then customers go away to your competitors. So, they are price sensitive. So, that is not a good proposition. Threat of substitute, meaning that you are going to make some kind of a product or service, offer some kind of product or service. Now, if there is a substitute, suppose a customer has an option to either take your product, even though there is no other product in the market, but then he can manage with a substitute product, then obviously your competitive advantage is reduced. Bargaining power of supplier. Here again, the suppliers may have many choices. So, definitely suppliers would like to get they would like to maximize their profit. So, you have to see what are their strengths and weaknesses. Even suppliers are in a marketplace, because they have to buy something to convert that into raw material, that becomes your raw material. Like suppose you think of a car company, you are trying to manufacture maybe a battery driven car. So, you are a new new kind of a technology, but then you have to depend on component suppliers who may be supplying to other companies as well. So, you have to, these component suppliers are in a marketplace where they buy primary raw material like steel, like aluminum, like other things. So, they also are dependent. So, whenever they have to face competition in their marketplace, they will immediately try to transmit that competition to you. So, you have to understand their market structure to assess your position. We need to understand Porter's 5 forces well before we really embark on a business model. So, we need to study all the points that are mentioned here. So, the discussion actually are there are slides discussing all the 5 points, but since I have covered them, I will not elaborate on them. So, these are the other 3. Now, I talked about network effect. We are let us understand that what we meant by that. It is repeatedly mentioned, like we are in a demand side economy, meaning that we are in an economy where scale matters the most, meaning that the driving force of a business is economies of scale, like Flipkart, like Amazon, where you must have a huge registered users. So, they keep on demanding, means they are so large in number that there is huge demand from customers. So, that is what they normally is referred to as network effect. So, in a network effect scenario, this Porter's 5 forces analysis or the parameters that I discussed about competitive advantages that give competitive advantages, these are not so pronounced. They are important, but then they are not so pronounced. Here firms have to continuously strive to create to grow customer base. They have to kind of try to increase the customer base, spending money, time, resources and talent, everything. So, so that they have a huge customer base. Once they have huge customer base, they can afford to bring variety. If you have 10,000 customers, out of them maybe 5 will have some kind of interest, but if you have 10 million customers, anything that you bring, there will be some people who will be interested in that. So, once you have a huge customer base, you can afford to give variety, you can afford to give better choices. Then because you buy in huge quantity, so you can bargain with your supplier, and you can manage your logistic, because there will be, you can optimize your logistic both in the supply side as well as in the delivery side, because your customer base is huge, like Flipkart has their own supply network. So, they can afford it because their turnover is huge. But suppose you start new and then your customer base is small, you won't be able to afford to have your own supply network. So, these companies can give higher satisfaction to customers and can easily grow customer base. It is a kind of a cascading effect or chain effect. You have higher customer base, you give more satisfaction, then you have more customers. So, it keeps on increasing and increasing and increasing. So, if you are exploring any business model in this network based model, means network which is driven by network base, then you have to calculate differently, means your entire scheme of things thought should be different. So, you have to invest a lot of resources, time and talent in just acquiring customer. So, initially you are going to burn a lot of cash. Flipkart is still burning cash, but then they are on right track. That is why investors are investing more money for them to create more customer base. But then be sure, wherever you are trying to make this business grow, make sure that this market actually is large enough for you to justify initial investment to acquire this customer base. Like this online medicine online, a company started, and then suddenly Ministry of health has stopped this company from operation. So, all the money that has been spent went down the drain. Very quickly I will be talking about this philosophy called effectuation. Actually, we have this Saraswati is a cognitive research scientist. He posed that question as to what do a smart entrepreneur do to decide to select business model. So, they talked to different successful entrepreneur and then posed question and try to capture as to what are the strategies that they follow to find out winning business models. So, here are they. So, expert entrepreneurs begin their quest to identify suitable business model by taking a stock of who they are, meaning that who they are means what are their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threat, the SWOT. So, they try to understand what is their qualification, experience. So, they try to start a business in that domain because they are domain expert into that. What kind of money they can bring? Suppose a business needs initial capital of 5 crore rupees, and if you do not have a crore also, so it is better to not to waste time exploring that business. So, you try to see your strength and weaknesses and then try to understand what kind of loss you can tolerate, etc., etc. So, effectuation is a process of thinking that helps entrepreneurs to identify and assess opportunity for new venture creation in that manner. It consists of set of decision making principles which I am going to discuss that smart entrepreneur employs. Particularly, there are 5 decision making, means 5 steps of decision making or 5 types. So, number 1 is what is already discussed, means they try to understand themselves. So, they look inward and then see what kind of skill they have, what kind of money, and then what kind of network they have, meaning how many, what kind of people they know. So, that they will realize that these people are going to hold our hands and then make us successful, something like that. They are mindful of the extent of loss they can sustain. So, if a business has a very high downside, they will not enter into unless they are sure that they can take care of, like Flipkart is burning rate is 2000 crore rupees a year. So, they know that we can actually raise more money to make good this loss. Unless they are confident, they definitely would not enter into that business. They appreciate surprise, meaning that they do not sit and calculate what if this happened, what do we do, etc., etc. They just take action, calculated action, but then whatever is the outcome, they know that outcome may be far away than what we expect, and they are ready for that. They kind of fight back and then move forward. They make partnership with people that they know with complementary skill, and then they try to minimize the uncertainties. People with skills, so kind of everybody contributes their share and then they reduce uncertainty. Last but not the least, they are the people who do not believe that everything is luck. They believe that they can create their future. Future is not decided or cannot be predicted, they build it. Another philosophy is that it is related to this network base also in a way, not directly, is a transient competitive advantage. We have been talking about competitive advantage throughout this presentation, but then one should not be besotted with this philosophy that unless I have a sustainable competitive advantage for 20 years or something, I should not start. It does not exist actually no longer. It used to exist earlier. Now things are changing. Now the company lives are shrinking. Like Fortune 500 company lives used to be 60 plus years earlier. Now it has come down to something like 15 years. So company life itself is changing. Product lifespan is shrinking even faster. So you have a product today, and then like say VCR, that product was there and suddenly it was not there. So you invest a lot of money, infrastructure, create infrastructure, suddenly you see that this product is no longer interesting to customers. So everything goes down the drain. That is why it is it is important to understand that things are changing very fast. So, unless you are ready to churn new product very frequently or refine your own product, so that it gives new experience to the customer or new value to the customer, then perhaps it is not wise to think of sustainable competitive advantage. Those who are nimble enough to constantly build or refine products and meet the changing needs and tastes of the customers are likely to create sustainable business, great business. Some references, and then in conclusion, even Osterwalder has said that there is no one size fits all strategy. As per him, many of the elements in business model canvas are actually assumptions or hypotheses and not decisions. So, it may not hold true under different conditions. So, one should be very careful. These templates are for guidance, not really as a decision making tools. Thank you.